I just couldn't hear my soul in that moment when I was at that breaking point, that tipping point, and reflecting on it now, the poetic irony of what unfolded next when God sent me something that just shook me to my core actually was such a moment for me. And I wasn't going to share this story. I wasn't going to record it and make it a podcast, that is, but I ended up catching up with my sister and she was like, wow, that was so beautiful to hear that story. And I was like, yeah, actually, maybe I should spill the divinity and let others hear it too. So in the off chance that you're at breaking point or tipping point or anything like that, stick around because this story is it's gonna really do something to your heart. Welcome to I Am Divine AF. This is not just a podcast. It's an anthem for the souls ready to reclaim their divinity and break free into their highest destiny. My mission is to help you answer the casual "how are you?" with "I've never been fucking happier." So buckle up as we go on a journey to debunk divinity and liberate the only thing that creates your reality, your consciousness. Episodes will be engineered with spiritual empowerment that awaken your superconscious, activate your divine gifts, and help you live the legacy you always dreamed of. One divine aligned step at a time. Let's make magic, people, and have the time of our lives while doing it. Let me just start by saying that black moon was like, woo! It gave me the feels. And sometimes I get this feeling that I could cry for all of humanity. Like I'm just a conduit and anyone that needs to purge is just like, yep, there's a portal that's sacred and I honor that. And sometimes it's just my own shit, right? And for whatever reason, I couldn't necessarily put my finger on the pulse of where the emotions were rooted. And that's totally okay. But I'll tell you what, the self-talk was starting to get a little like, yeah, we're not doing that. So I knew emotionally I was like quite compromised because I felt the panic and the erraticness and the just could break down and just bawl my eyes out. Then the mind started to get into the narrative and the intrusive thoughts started to come. And I was like, yeah, we're going to pattern interrupt this. And not because it's spiritual bypassing, but more so we're not going to allow the spiral to be a downward spiral into the dooms of like darkness, if you want to call it that. I said, if I can't do it emotionally, like if I can't get myself there and I don't want to force myself to be like fake happy, because that's just not a vibe. And I knew mentally, like, it was just a bit of an effort, right? It's like, okay, you're obviously in your mind a bit scattered. These things are coming up, you're witnessing them, but like, what's really going to create the shift right now? What's the number one thing I can do? And was how the experiment actually started when I asked myself this question. What's the one thing I could do right now that could create the biggest shift in my life? And it's the quantum shift, right? Sometimes it's as granular as that. And I was like, you know what? I just need to be. So what do I need to be? What can I do in my beingness right now that's going to serve me from my executive self? And in my book, I've talked about this, the emotional self, the cognitive self, and then the executive self. So I knew my emotional self was compromised. My cognitive self was, it's a little unstable ground there. Didn't want to add too much to her plate. And the executive self, I was like, all right, let's just shut down the mind. Let's allow the emotions and let's just focus on the execution. What can I do right now? And I was like, well, you wanted to go to the wellness center for a sauna. So I was like, great. Don't worry about feeling better in order to go. Don't even worry about feeling positive in order to go. Just do the next thing. So I was like, all right, the one thing I could do right now to shift everything that's the best for me is get to the wellness center. So it just became an act of doing. And I was like, what do I need to do? I need to put on clothes. Okay, put on clothes. Okay, I need to pack a swimsuit for the sauna. Okay, cool. I need to order a bike to get there. I need to XYZ, So it just became so simple. One divine aligned step at a time. I was locking the door to my place and I was like, my God, like Satan wants to have a little rodeo today. He's just trying to come in at every little opportunity. And I could feel the cognitive self and that little voice of poison being like, can't believe you're not in a better place by now. Like, you've always wanted to move into a villa. And I'm like, we're not doing that. I was like, I'm not feeding into that voice because like, yes, I am in the cutest little place right now. I call it like my miracle bunker. And it's just such an incubator of genius for me right now because I was like, I don't have the energy to house hunt during peak season and find a new villa and rush around. And honestly, it was a survival move to get away from the destruction. But it was easy for the ego to kind of try and make a story about it. And I was like, we're just not doing that. So I locked up the doors and I was like, okay, I'm just going to set an alarm. And the alarm was like champagne frequency and gratitude. And I set it for when I knew I was going to be on the treadmill. So I was like, all right, when we're having a workout, we're going to think about all the wins. I call that the champagne frequency, where you actively just go, we're going to glorify and we're just going to be like, well, what did you actually do well? And gratitude, that's self-explanatory, just really law of relativity, focusing on the blessings and just making sure to take note of the amount of things that you can appreciate in life. So I was setting that alarm while walking down to meet the driver. And then I looked up and he was there at the end of the alley. Some of them drive right down to in front of my place. So I was walking towards him and I was like, God, at least you don't have to drive around all day on a scooter to make ends meet, or you have the responsibility of mouths to feed and that pressure, And as I walked up to him, I was saying this to myself, my cognitive self already started to shift. And I was like, and right now, the only thing you have to do is go to a wellness center that you love, to access facilities that are top notch, to do something good for yourself. And I was like, oh, wow. And I was thinking this as I was walking up to him. And when I finally got to him, God, it makes me like, honestly, like this happened a few days ago and I wanted to record it, but I didn't have a place to do that. And I just thought, you know what, not everything needs to be recorded. But anyways, I got to the bike and the driver started signing to me and he was deaf. And he didn't know because I had sunnies on, but I had had tears in my eyes already while getting ready and things like that. I just felt like I was at that breaking point, and it's okay. When you're at that breaking point, sometimes just bawl out, like just the biggest move that's like fucking dope is to let yourself cry, let yourself feel what you're going to feel. So I knew that I was at that point, but I didn't feel like I was going to break down and actually cry. It was just really bubbling and sitting there at the surface. So I had tears in my eyes and, I got on the back of the scooter and it was just like such a moment. Just he turned to the side to look at me and he had the biggest smile and he put up like his hand and like, the okay, like with the three fingers up and like your thumb and your index are forming like an O. And it's like, yeah, okay. Like, are we good to go? And in that moment, I was like, yeah, we are okay. And we are good to go. So he drove off and I was thinking about this moment so much. And I was like, I don't want to forget this story. It just felt significant. The first thing I thought was like, I wonder if I have any cash in my wallet. I just want to give him some cash because like obviously you book it on the app and I don't know if he gets tip from that when I add tip there. And I was like, I just wanted to make sure because he really brightened my day. And as I started to write down this story so that I wouldn't forget this moment, I was typing out the part where I say he turns in with the biggest smile and with the okay sign and me writing this out like, yeah, we are okay. We are good to go. I just felt like my entire I felt just like this presence like flood over me and just every place where I was holding emotion on that brink, on that tipping point, just dissolved in that moment. And I was like, oh my God, I feel like God sent this man to me. And it was just like a symbol of like, it's okay to block out the noise. block out the noise, smile, it's okay. We're good to go. And so it was just a really, really beautiful moment. And I almost didn't leave the house because I was like, I don't need to force anything right now. I need to nurture. But I knew that if I laid there in bed, I didn't want to give myself more reasons to be in a downward spiral. And I was like, I need to get out into the sunshine, into the light. I had been laying in the room with the blinds closed. And he pulled up to the wellness center, and I opened my wallet. I didn't even count what was in there. I just gave him all the cash that was in my wallet. And his smile, oh my God, is imprinted into my psyche. And it was just the biggest smile. And he just didn't expect it. And then he turned and looked somewhere else, and he saw the security guy smiling, and then I saw him looking at the security. So I looked, and then the security was smiling at me. And as I walked past the security, the security was left there smiling, And then I guess the deaf guy signaled something to him, and then the security was smiling even more. And it just felt like this ripple impact moment. And I was like, yeah, I gave him all the money that was in my wallet, but what he gave me was priceless. And so, and you couldn't script this shit. Rise Up by Andra Day then started playing on my Spotify, and it's and I'll rise up. I don't even know what all the lyrics are, but it's basically no matter what, you'll keep rising up. And I just had a moment as I was reflecting on it going into the wellness. I was like, it's sometimes the days that you feel like the little you have to give is not enough. And I just want to remind you, if you have 1% and you give it, then you gave 100% of what you have. And so I hope that helps someone today. So it's not a long episode. It's just sharing a little bit of a story that mattered to me, in the hopes that if you're having a hard time and you are emotional, and this moon was whiplashing you around, or any day that you feel like the field is coming at you, it's okay. Block out the noise, smile, it's gonna be okay. So love and light, and stay divine. As always, I cannot wait to share more with you on this journey of life. Sending all the love. Thanks so much for listening.